And after some years, the High Constitutional Court decided that every poll station and every ballot box, there must be a judge there. And we don't have enough judges to sit in front of all these boxes, so Egypt was divided into 3 parts. Elections will go for 3 weeks, first week in each, and every box there will be a judge. The outcome of the first part of the election was that Mubarak party had only 23% of the votes in the first third. And this percentage, with strong pressure from the police, with lots of efforts, but not real bringing or doing things on the ballot itself. So the government moved very fast in the second and third part of the elections, and because the judges were there, the only way to prevent, to change the outcome of the election was to close streets of all of Egypt to prevent people to reach the ballot station. And that happened all over Egypt. And my daughter was prevented to reach the ballot station in Doki, which is a place right in the center of Cairo, and she made a big fight with the general and the police there, and she went to made a report, etc., and she could not reach the ballot station. Only cars, microbuses carrying members of the NDP party could pass through this blockade and reach. And finally, the Mubarak had 75% of the elections. Last elections was a disastrous because it was supposed to be 100%, but in the last minute, before they announced the elections, they decided that this will be too much. So they found few opposition people and rigged the election for them to win the elections. So the outcome was 98%. So this is just to give you an idea what was freedom in Egypt and how did the parliament look like. And concerning local elections in villages, local councils, it was very easy. Mubarak had 100% of the seats. 23,000 seats were all won by free elections by Mubarak party. If we say that Egypt is a police state, parties were not allowed at that time to be formed without the approval of the NDP. So Mubarak's party had to decide which party can be formed. And if they don't like a special party, they say no. You cannot form a party. This party cannot be formed. And they allowed 24 parties to be formed. All of them had between 10 and 150 members. All of them, nobody knows their names, neither we or the government or anybody. It was just a decoration, because Mubarak, when he sits anywhere, he say we are a free democracy, we have 24 opposition papers. And security police was actually controlling everything in Egypt to a degree you cannot really believe. All universities were controlled by the police. Students were controlled and inspected while they were bodily searched while they were entering the campus. New appointments had to go through the security police. If you are the first in your class and you are supposed to have a post in the university, you will never ever get it unless you have clearance from the security police. If any doctor has a scholarship somewhere, he will never be able to go and travel except the security police allows him to do that. All the syndicates of Egypt, except with the exception of the journalist syndicate, were completely stopped and banned, and no elections for 26 years. They stopped elections and sort of appointed people from the party, so there were no elections for doctors, engineers, architects, any professional, law, nothing, only the journalists. And the judges started also to be affected by this. During the past 10 years, they started to infiltrate the judicial systems, and there were known judges to be the government judges, and special cases were referred to them for trials. All political things against the government were referred to specific and well-known judges. And that's why 6 years ago there was a big revolt by all the judges of Egypt, which was a very important activity at that time. All the newspapers, including the independent ones, were controlled by the police, again for TV channels. All telephone calls were tapped and recorded, 100%. And I knew, of course, and many others, that their telephones were tapped. So the first thing when I'm talking to somebody from the opposition, I tell him, Mubarak is a big Omar, I hate him, I know this is tapped, and then I started to continue talking just to let them know that we don't care. And we know it is tapped. Any new appointment in universities, judges, or in any leading position had to pass security clearance. All meetings were not allowed. I mean, a meeting like this was impossible in Egypt for the past 30 years. Never, impossible. No hotel will allow this because it will be closed, the hotel, and your contract with them will be cancelled. You have to take special permission for weddings, because this is a sort of a meeting, but you prove that this is a real wedding and will be music and dancing, etc., then it's okay. You are allowed to do that. Scientific conferences were not allowed, except having permission. Names of the speakers, Egyptian speakers, Arab speakers, international speakers, had to go through clearance from the security before the meeting. And all the guests coming should have, again, scrutinization before this will occur. So that was the real situation. And plus all, torture. Torture, I'm not going to say personal experience, but I'm going to talk about the Human Rights Report Watch on Egypt 2010. The government continued to use a state of emergency to detain peaceful critics and opponents. Some were held under administrative detention orders. Others were sentenced to prison terms after unfair trials or military courts. Torture and other ill treatment remained widespread in police centers. Security police detained thousands of people. Numbers were not exactly known. The rights to freedom of expression, association, assembly were curtailed. Journalists, bloggers were among those detained and prosecuted, and at least 4 died in these years, but the reports are, they are many. I mean, I'm sure there were at least 100 or even more died from torture during detention in police stations, in security. The economic situation, I'm not going to talk much, but this is from an official report. that health, education, shelter, nutrition, sanitation, informed were very bad. Just one thing I'm going to say, very simple, that the budget of education in Egypt, general education, university education, plus the budget of health in Egypt, multiplied by 3 equal the police budget. You can't believe it, but these are 2 figures. These are 2 figures to what happens to Egypt. Agriculture production was very much affected by, it was neglected, difficulty for finance, lack of fertilizers, market reduction in production. The laws were not applied, so people built on agricultural ground illegally, and huge fertile land were lost because of corruption. I don't know the real figure of how much did Mubarak and his son and family and Suleiman, or as Moida Hussein Salem had. But we for sure know that the gas to Israel was sold below the production price. And this is something new, and very much below the international price. And probably Israel, as when I followed some of the Israeli newspapers, apparently they didn't have the gas with that very low price. No, they have it with a much higher price. But all this difference went to middle people. And middle people were Hussein Salem, who was probably partner of Mubarak's son and an Israeli partner in this company, and billions were earned on this gas contract. And the harm was even more, because Egypt started to import solar, which we need very much, which is not good for pollution, instead of using our own gas to produce electricity. So it was a big mess, big corruption, pollution, you can't believe. And repeatedly, the Minister of Power in Egypt and Oil repeatedly mentioned that the price of the Egyptian gas is a top secret, which nobody will ever know. This is more important than any military secret in Egypt. When he was asked by people, and this agreement for the gas did not go through the parliament, against the constitution, against all Egyptian laws, and you can just hit your head against the wall, nothing will happen. If we assume that the 10% only as a commission is taken by Mubarak's friend, it is estimated that during his years, around 40 billion Egyptian pounds were spent on infrastructure. 400 billion was spent on, which is around $80 billion. 10% were commissions. And this is a very decent figure. Probably it is much more than that to his friend, $8 billion. And the local national debt rose in Egypt from 4 billion Egyptian pounds when Mubarak took power to 888 billion Egyptian pounds during his period. I'm not talking about foreign debts, because it's a bit more complicated to count. You can count it in different ways. But this is very clear and is well shown. Naturally, there was opposition to Mubarak before the revolution, and the opposition was partly false opposition, which is the official opposition, accepted and agreed upon by Mubarak. Mainly two parties, Wafd Party, which is a very old liberal party with a great history, but it became part of faction, part of the government. The police infiltrated the party, and they became nothing. The same applied to, again, a very big party, which was Tagamma, which included all the left factions, and again, it became very, very much affected by the police, and these two parties could not achieve one seat, practically, in the parliament on their own, and many other insignificant parties, which just for decoration, the 24 parties I mentioned to you. The non-official opposition was, the biggest was the Muslim Brothers, which was started in 1928 and was working partially underground, partially overground, and made agreements on and off with Mubarak regime. Sometimes they are put in prison, sometimes they are out, but they have opportunities to work, to have public offices, sometimes, not always. And then many other groups started. The first one was not an opposition in the street. In 2003, the March 9 group for university independence, this is the group my friends and myself, we together started, and we made a big fight with all the administrators and the police and Amn Dawla and all this in the university to free the university, and we made a real problem for them. And we achieved a lot of things, not everything, but we achieved to let people appointed, to travel even when the Amn Dawla refused to give them permits. We achieved to organize demonstrations, to organize parallel elections for the Students' Union, because the Students' Union were completely rigged. كلها مزورة انتخابات الطلبة. For what we did a parallel Students' Union, and we advertised for people to run for elections, and we did it. And that created a lot of problems for the government. And the last thing which had a big impact was when our university rector and the board decided to give Mrs. Mubarak the honorary doctoral degree from the Cairo University. And after we knew that, and invitations were distributed and announcement, we made a very strong statement that our university board is corrupt and they are licking the feet of the president and his wife. Literally, we wrote that, and they deserve not to be working in an academic center, and we are going to stop this and demonstrate in front of this. Now, finally, she had the honorary doctoral degree, but we spoiled the thing, because they had to cancel all invitations, to re-invite people, because they were worried that somebody invited might create a problem during the event. They canceled that it will be shown on the air on the television, because again they were afraid that somebody will do something. Now, there is a case in the court, which I think in 2 or 3 days, that we are asking the court to take out this honorary doctoral degree from Mrs. Mubarak, again, because that was illegal, and we have big hopes that we will win the case.
did it in jail. لا ناطر.
لا ما هم خرجوه.
هو يجيبوها تاني.
لا قال لك اتبرعت بفلوسها فخلاص عفى الله عما سلف. قال يعني هي اللي كانت فيها لما.
Second, the real first public group of people were Kefaya, who were really very brave group of people of different ages, of different directions, from the right to the left, who did the first demonstrations in the street. March 9 did demonstrations in the campus, but now for the first time in the street, and that was considered a big catastrophe for the government, and 50 demonstrators were surrounded by 10,000 soldiers. 50 demonstrators anywhere. And Kefaya continued to, I was member of Kefaya from the beginning, and many of our friends became member of Kefaya, and it really did a big thing. It was not a big organization, it was not a very organized thing, but it was a very important point or group to stimulate things to happen. And then April 6th, which I think was a very important movement. This started in Mahalla Kobra, when there was a strike by the workers 4 years ago, and the students went there, young students, supported the workers, and Mahalla was closed, and the police had to fight the people for 3 days until they could open Mahalla. Many people were dead and injured. The people who did that job from the young people, because that thing happened on the April 6th, they called themselves 6th of April movement, and till now it is one of the strongest movements, really very good and very strong and well organized, and it became very big, and it participated strongly in the revolution. Finally, Khalid Said, that you all know about Khalid Said, the young man in Alexandria who was tortured by two policemen, and he was killed, and there was a great anger because of his torture, and a big group joined Facebook by Khalid Said, and this for the first time the Facebook played a very important role in the coming revolution since Khalid Said. There were many leftist groups who were also very active. Finally, there was a group which is called the الجمعية الوطنية للتغيير. It was formed when Mohammed al-Baradei came back from Vienna, and people gathered from different groups together to form a forum which will help Egypt to move forwards and to change. And probably now we had 7 demands or 7 things to happen, and all of them we achieved them, so probably it is going to be dissolved. I think tomorrow there is a meeting on this, and I sent my vote by email. On the 25th of January, on the 24th evening, I was having dinner with some friends, the political writer and professor Hassan Nafa, and Amr Hamzawi, one of the political activists, and I think 3-4 people more. And we were talking about tomorrow. What is going to happen tomorrow? And Amr Hamzawi asked me, what do you think? He was a newcomer to Egypt because he was living abroad and he didn't join any of the things before. I told them, if 20,000 people went in the streets all over Egypt, This will be a big achievement. We have hopes. Maybe after 6 months, maybe after a year, things will change and we will be able to push Mubarak out. But if it's only 2,000 all over Egypt, then that will be a big setback. On the 25th, as Mr. Gamal al-Ghitani mentioned, I was told by the young people to go to Dar al-Khada al-Ali, downtown Cairo, and I was told to go there at 12. I went 15 to 12. I didn't find one person. I was the only person. I thought, what happened? No demonstration. But people came. In 30 minutes, we were several thousands, 10,000, 15,000, and of course surrounded by 20,000 police soldiers. But finally, the people could push the police, open the blockade, and rush to Tahrir Square. I received a telephone call. You have to come to Dar al-Hikmah, which is a doctor's syndicate in Qasr al-Ain Street. So I went there. There was another demonstration, again surrounded by the same police. Finally, the police was pushed, and we walked to Tahrir. They blocked Qasr al-Ain Street, so we couldn't move. So we get orders again from the young people. We go through Garden City in the small alleys there. Finally, we reached Tahrir Square. There were people gathering. That day was a peaceful day. The police didn't hit us, didn't use gas bombs, didn't use sticks or anything. And the people were also very peaceful. The only thing they did is to push the police to open a place just for them to go. I went to Tahrir Square with the people, stayed there, and then at 9 o'clock, the organization of the youth came and announced that people above the age of 50 should go home and come tomorrow morning. Why? We are expecting a big fight tonight. And we should organize ourselves, and people above the age of 50 will make a problem for us because we have to protect them and we have to be... So we all left home at 9 o'clock, and I was very anxious all the night looking at the Facebook, and I knew that 2 o'clock in the morning the police came with police cars and they started very strong movement, and they succeeded in evacuating Tahrir Square with many losses, but not life losses, to the demonstrators. 26 and 27, I was told to go to the journalist syndicate and Ustaz Gamal al-Ghitani من نقابة الصحفيين, and we were there. There was a police barricade around us, and we were imprisoned. حبسنا جوه. There were fights all over the town. Now, during this fight, things became more not that safe and not that peaceful. The police started to really beat people, injure people, etc. On the 27th, when I could leave the syndicates, the German syndicate, I received a telephone call from Dr. Mohammed al-Barad'i telling me that he is in Vienna airport going to Cairo, and he wants to see me with Dr. Aboulghar Mustafa وحمدي أنديل وعلاء الأسواني I don't remember. He mentioned 4 or 5 names. Right? And please call them and you come to my home at 8 o'clock. Because my flight arrives at 7. And which we did. And we found lots of young people there in his home, around 20 of the organizers. And they made plans. They said I should go with Aboulghar Mustafa, with Mohammed al-Barad'i, to a mosque called جامع الاستقامة في ميدان الجيزة, Giza Square. And other people were ordered to go in other places, and we did, and that was the real fight. We went there, and the mosque was closed because of people were filling it, and the whole square of Giza Square you could not just move 1 centimeter. We were totally surrounded by the police. And then the prayers start. Nobody could really pray because nobody could sit or just bow. I mean, we were all. And in the last minute of the prayers, when we heard the last word in the prayers, the police started hitting us by these electric sticks. And throwing those tear gas bombs. Baladri's glasses were broken, and he started to be drowsy from the gas, and they carried him to the mosque. They forced the back door of the mosque and put him inside. My wife collapsed from the gas issues also. My wife and 2 daughters, and the 2 husbands of my 2 daughters, were all in the same demonstration. My daughter also collapsed. And then I didn't see them. I didn't see exactly what happened. But what was left is me, Hannah, my eldest daughter, and her husband. He's an ophthalmologist. And we continued fighting in the street for 7 hours with around 4,000 or 5,000 young people from the Giza area. And the police was shooting us with this water cannons, gas tears, and finally started this rubber bullets. And we were running, going into side streets and collecting again. And after 5.5 hours, a major demonstration coming from this place called Talbeya in the southern part, very close to the pyramids. It's a district, it's a simple district there, poor district, rather poor district there. There it was 15,000 people were coming. They had to take 6 hours to overcome the police to reach us during the, and they had very important influence in pushing the police. Finally, the police, of course, Hannah, my daughter, actually, when I had the electric stick, my hand was open, I started bleeding, but she had first aid, she managed to help me. Also, she gave me the goggles for swimming for the, she was ready by the Tunisian experience, because it was mentioned, they followed up. We حطينا بيبسي كولا على وشنا وايدينا وجسمنا, بيقول لك this is the best protective thing against the tear gas, البيبسي كولا. فطبعا كان جايبه معاه ازايز بيبسي كولا وادهنا بيبسي كولا, وغرقنا بقى ميه 5 مرات وننشف ونغرق وبتاع. Finally, we found out that the police is not shooting, is not giving water, and the police barricade was open, and we rushed. I found that there's only 1 young second lieutenant, نجمة واحدة كده غلبان, ضابط بوليس, والعساكر واقفين مدلدلين كده جنبه على الناحيتين, وما فيش ولا ضابط. Not one of those big officers who were giving orders, كان مدير الأمن وأمن الدولة, كل دول كانوا واقفين من الأول يعني الصبح. So I went to one of the soldiers. I was a bit worried that the young people might go and clash with the soldiers. So I went to one of the soldiers, I shook his hand, I told him, you are brave and so on. And they were very happy, and I started saying, bravo. The young people started saying, so it went okay. And then we walked. They say we will walk to Tahrir. Everybody said, khalas. And we found out that this battle, which is called the famous Giza battle, other battles similar to it, like the one you have seen here on Qasr Nil Bridge in the video, this is another one. There was about 5 battles in Cairo, and finally the police surrendered, disappeared from the whole Cairo, and all Egyptians rushed to Tahrir. And these are just some pictures from the area, and that's from the Giza while they were beating us in the first moment, without nobody saying anything. They started throwing these things, and this is just before we were hit. This is Baradei and myself and his brother. And this is a scene you have seen in the Asr-Nil bridge. It is estimated that around 8 to 10 million Egyptians joined demonstrations over Egypt. The largest, of course, was in Tahrir Square, and this is at Tahrir Square on the 10th of February, which was the most crowded day, the last day before Mubarak was pushed out. I lived in Tahrir Square the whole time. I had a very old clinic, which I don't use now, 50 meters from Tahrir Square in Babylon. So I opened the clinic. It was closed. We opened it as a supporter for Tahrir Square, for our group and friends. So we were taking showers there, going to toilet and putting food in the fridge, and so it works as يعني حاجة كويسة أوي يعني استفدنا منها. The most important thing that people in Tahrir Square were really united. There was not one religious slogan. And for the first time, some things happened which never happened before in Egypt. The Pope of Egypt told the Egyptian Copts not to demonstrate. One day before, on the 24th, and the Copts went in the street and demonstrated for the first time. And there are people who died. There are martyrs from the Copts. 13 people died. All parties, Al-Wafd, Tagamma, all of them ordered the people not to go. The Muslim brothers ordered the people not to go. And of course, they obeyed. Obeyed on the 25th. But they went on the 28th. They changed. I mean, they get different types of order on the 28th. So they went very strongly on the 28th. There was no religious slogans at all. The people were praying in the street. There were priests, and there was a mess for the Christians, and they were surrounded by the Muslims to protect them in the early days, because it was very dangerous. There were lots of thugs, and the police was still attacking us. It was very, very dangerous in that period. And again, the Muslims played. There was absolutely, they were all Egyptians, no difference, nothing happened. During that day, I don't know how much time I'm allowed and how much is left. I received a telephone call from the Prime Minister's office. He was Ahmed Shafiq, before he was forced to leave. And he asked me to come and see him in his office. And I told him, and he said, you must come within 1 hour. I told him, if I am going to come, it will be after 6 hours. And I must consult with my colleagues in the square, because I cannot just come on my own. We have to agree, all of us, on this. So we made an urgent meeting in another clinic, Dr. Aboulghar Mustafa, which is also close to Tahrir Square. And all the groups were represented there. And I told them, now the Prime Minister wants to meet me. I want an answer. Shall I go or not? Number two, I refuse to go alone. Somebody else must accompany me. So if you decide that I should go, then you choose somebody to join me. And third, we must write down what we are going to tell him exactly, in writing. And they agreed. Abdurrahman Yusuf, Sha'ar Abdurrahman Yusuf, who was the one of the youth leaders, who was the one who accompanied me. And we wrote 2 items. Number 1, that the Prime Minister should announce that demonstrations, peaceful demonstrations, are acknowledged and agreed upon and allowed by his government. And he must promise to protect Tahrir Square and to send all types of forces, to send out the thugs and to send out the remnants of the police. Number 2, Mubarak must go. And we went and met him. Item number 1 took 5 seconds and said, it will be done. I'll make an announcement now, and I'll send special forces, even from the Air Force, because he was a previous Air Force, to clear the area around Tahrir to make it very safe. But Mubarak, no. Mubarak is good. Mubarak is staying only 6 months. Finally, of course, we could not agree on the second item, and we insisted, and we left. Now, during this period, the police started to be very, very nasty. Starting from the 28th afternoon, when they found out that they really lost the battle. So instead of using rubber bullets, they started using real bullets. And in starting shooting at the legs, they started shooting at the head. And during these days, from the 28th afternoon till the 11th of February, it is estimated that there is around 1,000 people who were assassinated and 1,000 people missing. We don't know where they are. Possibly they are dead, possibly they are in some remote prisons, buried somewhere, we really don't know. And it is estimated that there is a large number of injured people, mostly eye injuries, spinal injuries and other types of injuries. And that's why we started, our family, my wife and 2 girls, decided to say we are going to start the victims of Tahrir Square Revolution. Officially there is 800 deaths, but probably it will be more, we will know more. Around 5,000 injuries, mostly head injuries, some lost limbs, spinal cord injuries, many became handicapped, and 1,000 people lost. And this is many pamphlets and many papers about the victims of the revolution. This is one of them which was distributed in Tahrir. And the objective of the foundation is, number 1, creating a proper database for all victims, which unfortunately is not done yet by the government or by any other organization. There are many people who are helping, but in not a real organized way. Proper medical, psychological counseling of all the patients, social and economic evaluation and needs assessment for these patients, forming a committee to evaluate and to decide the mean of dealing of each case on an individual basis, and to establish sustainable system by which victims and their families can be supported. This part, we decided it is our responsibility. We assessed that the cost will be 280,000 Egyptian pounds, and we deposited this money in a special account. But my daughter called me yesterday and said, since it was announced and the number is written, the street is blocked there, and there are cars coming from different governments with victims and families of people who are dead. They want to report and they want help, and they also ask for cost of transportation, which she had to do for them. تدفع لهم أجرة التاكسات والحاجات اللي جايين من بلاد دول. ده حصل امبارح بس بعد ما بلال فضل كتب العنوان والنمر. فدلوقتي الشارع مسدود اللي فيه الجمعية دي بسبب ان الموضوع، ويبدو ان العدد هيطلع اكتر بكتير يعني من اللي احنا كنا فاكرين. بس anyway, we promise to support if there is. And the reason of this is any donations come to this organization from Egypt or from outside Egypt will totally and 100% go to the victims. None of the money, not a penny of the money will go into administrative or electricity bills or renting or anything. All to the victims. Now what about the future? That's a very difficult thing, and I think I'll leave it to you mostly, because nobody can really answer the future. The situation now is that we have liberal parties and the Copts and the leftists. They are all one bloc. And those are the people who said no to referendum before. And then we have the Muslim Brotherhood, other Islamic parties, new Islamic parties, and Salafiyin, اللي هم طلعوا لنا كده ما تفهمش منين دول حاجة جديدة. They are one bloc. And then there is still the silent majority. During the referendum, the turnout of people who went to police stations was the highest ever in the Egyptian history. It was much, much, much more than any time before, the people going to the polls. It is estimated that 41% of the people who had the right to vote, they went to a referendum. The people before that going to elections were 3% of Egyptians who were going to the election. To referendum, it was 0.5%. Previous referendum for changing constitution, etc. So this is very big. But still, there are 60% of the people who didn't go and didn't vote. And the people who said yes in the elections, they are not all the Muslim Brothers and the Salafiyin, etc. No, I think there are 2 million people from this group who could convince another 2 million Egyptians to say no. So 4 million people said no, actually. And those 2 million people, they are equally the same number, could convince 12 million people to say yes. And that was very easy. What, خلاص?
No, you have all the time.
Go ahead.
It's yours. It's yours. You have another. Oh. Sit down.
هو من الحر يا عيني ايه؟
يعني أنا رحت. I went to Mansoura, invited by Mohammed. He was making a big rally for people to say no to the referendum. And actually there were 5,000 people. 5,000 واحد في أسوان قد كده كلهم قالوا نو فعلا وجايين. رحت أنا I went with Hamdi Andil in the morning, that day morning. We spent overnight in Mansoura. That was one day before the referendum. To a small, very small village. Start talking to the people. What are you going to vote? And they said, yes, we will say yes. Why are you going to say yes? He said, والله يعني في 2 ناس طيبين من بتوع الإخوان